system. This is Sudha Murthy. Long before she became a celebrated author, she was a young girl living in a world defined by a very different pace of life. In mid-20th century North Karnataka, information didn't travel at the speed of light. The transport system was so rugged that the morning paper wouldn't reach her village until the afternoon, and weekly magazines were often a full day late. Young Sudha was an active student, the lens through which her family viewed the printed word. At the center of her world was her grandmother, Krishtaka, whom she called Ava. Ava was the capable matriarch of the household, a woman who managed everything with confidence, except for one hidden thing. She had never learned to read. Despite the decades between them, the two were bound by the shared environment and daily rhythms of their village. Their strongest connection was a weekly magazine called Karmavira. It featured a serialized novel, Kashi Yatre, written by the popular Kannada author Triveni. The story followed an old woman who desperately wanted to go to Kashi. In the end, she gave up her life savings, money meant for her pilgrimage, to fund the wedding of an orphan girl. Ava was captivated. She saw her own life reflected in the protagonist. Every Wednesday, she would drop her housework and sit with absolute concentration as Sudha read the latest episode aloud, eventually memorizing the text word for word. After the reading, Ava took these stories to the temple courtyard, where she and her friends debated the plot, while the children played nearby. Ava's connection to literature and the outside world was gated by her granddaughter's ability to decode the script for her. That connection broke when Sudha traveled to a neighboring village to attend a wedding. While the elders were busy with the ceremony, the children enjoyed the absolute freedom to eat and play for hours. A stay intended for a couple of days stretched into a full week, meaning Sudha was still away when the next Wednesday magazine arrived. This brief pause in a child's schedule left Ava at home, facing the magazine without her reader for the first time. The Karmavira arrived as scheduled, but Sudha wasn't there to open it. Ava opened the pages and saw the familiar illustrations of Kashi Yatre, but the script surrounding them was incomprehensible. She found herself rubbing her hands over the ink, as if she could pull the meaning out of the paper through touch. She was too embarrassed to ask anyone else in the village to read it to her. For the first time, she felt the true weight of being dependent on others. When Sudha finally returned a week later, she expected to see her grandmother smiling as usual. Instead, she found Ava in tears, a sight she had never seen, even during the family's most difficult times. Illiteracy had created a wall around her. It showed that even if a family is well off, money is no substitute for the ability to navigate the world on your own. That night, sitting on the open terrace under a full moon, Ava finally spoke. She told Sudha about losing her mother as a young girl. In those days, education for girls was seen as unnecessary, and there was no one to guide her toward a classroom. Her life was quickly consumed by domestic needs, getting married young, raising children, and spending decades cooking for a large household. She had spent her life regretting her lack of education, a feeling she tried to soothe by making sure her children and grandchildren studied as hard as they could. Her helplessness with the magazine wasn't a personal failing. It was the result of social norms that had closed the door on her before she was even 10 years old. Ava told her granddaughter that money is useless if a person isn't independent. She announced a decision. She would learn the Kannada alphabet. She set a deadline for the festival of Dasara, vowing that by Saraswati Puja, she would be able to read a novel by herself. Then, the 62-year-old grandmother did something unexpected. She asked her 12-year-old granddaughter to be her teacher. Sudha initially laughed at the idea, looking at her grandmother's gray hair and wrinkled hands, and imagining her trying to learn like a first grader. But the pursuit of self-reliance doesn't have an expiration date. It simply requires a grandmother and a granddaughter to trade roles, turning a child into a teacher and a matriarch into a student.